Who are you? What's your role? And where do you work?
Hi, my name is Alex Kirkup. I'm a chief architect with Akamai working on Akamai's cloud.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you're keeping an eye on?
So 3 main areas I'm focused on at the moment. Observability, because that has huge scale. So some of the new versions of Prometheus, OpenTelemetry, Victoria Metrics. The second one is stateful workloads in Kubernetes. We're seeing like some really exciting uses where we're seeing things like TIKV, which allow massive scale within Kubernetes, as well as database operators like Cloud Native PG, which allow us to do really complex disaster recovery and failover. And finally, the maturity or the maturing platform engineering sort of space, where there are a number of tools to help developers develop applications quicker and reduce sort of the toil of managing your Kubernetes platforms. And we saw a huge uptick in that in the platform engineering day on the Colo sessions on Tuesday.
Touching on the subject of stateful workloads, since it's something we've spoken about more than twice, it seems that running stateful workloads on Kubernetes is still problematic, yet at the same time it feels like we've come a long way. Where do you stand on that?
So I've been saying for a long while, there is no such thing as a stateless workload. Almost every application has to store state somewhere. And we've gone for a long while where we're managing stateful workloads in a very different way to the way we manage applications in Kubernetes. And I think now we're converging, right? We don't want to have 2 ways of doing CI/CD, 2 ways of doing observability, 2 ways of doing logging, 2 ways of doing security policies. We want to combine those two. Plus, we're also seeing Kubernetes offering really incredible scaling capabilities, where we have automated operators that enable really complex workloads, really complex scale-out databases, and even advanced features with like disaster recovery, multi-cluster replication, and services like that.
Since you mentioned platform engineering as well, one of our podcast guests, Hans, compared delivering software now to 20 years ago. He mentioned that while downtime was acceptable in the past, it isn't today. Hence, building platforms on top of Kubernetes requires more tooling than ever. Is it possible to keep tools sprawling at bay? What kind of tools are essential for building mission-critical platforms?
So that's a very topical question. The reality is the Cloud Native ecosystem today in the CNCF is over 200 projects. We have 19 new ones since the Paris KubeCon just a few months ago. And so, what users need to get to is an application platform where we have the platform engineering disciplines where we have curated stacks. And those curated stacks effectively take out a lot of the work on trying to figure out how you're going to do your service mesh, how you're going to do your security policies, how you're going to do your logging and your observability, for example. And this is something that we're very focused on at Akamai as well, where we've just launched our application platform as a free tool to give you a curated stack of applications within your Kubernetes platform.
On the subject of multi-tenancy, one of our guests, Artem, shared that once you slice your Kubernetes clusters into a multi-tenant environment, you should consider multi-tenancy for every tool you install, such as logging, monitoring, scaling, etc. What's your advice on building Kubernetes platforms that are shared in the organization?
So I'm going to come back to the platform engineering and the application platform here, right? Because when people are choosing their stack and their curated platform, number set of components that they're using within Kubernetes, they need to make sure that all of those components work together, but also have multi-tenancy at heart. So, for example, when you define your users and your teams in Keycloak, you can integrate that into your CI/CD, you can integrate that into the way you're doing your GitOps, into the way you're doing your container repos, but also how you integrate into logging and observability and secrets management, for example. So it is kind of important that when you're engineering your platform and you're developing your application platform, that all of those curated items work together in a multi-tenanted way.
Upgrading clusters. One of our guests, Pierre, stressed the significance of tooling and automation in managing Kubernetes clusters at scale. He and his team built tooling and developed procedures to test, manage, and upgrade hundreds of Kubernetes clusters. What's your strategy and process for upgrading a Kubernetes cluster?
So this is a tough one. Upgrading Kubernetes is hard. Every time the Kubernetes API changes, some things in your application will need changes. Large parts of the stack might need changes. So again, I'm going to take this back to the application platform and platform engineering principles. You need to have rather than having every developer and every application team have to test all of that intercomplicated web of dependencies to make sure that things are still compatible, because it's not just the Kubernetes API compatibility, but it's how each of the different components in the stack, say the service mesh with the Keycloak, with the observability platform, all work together. And so having an application platform that takes the toil out of that gives you that pre-tested environment, does help the developers to then simply upgrade to the next version of your application platform rather than having to figure out the entire stack yourself.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old this year. What should we expect in the next 10 years to come?
Lots of exciting things. I think there are still lots of security challenges as we continue to grow in the scale of Kubernetes. There are tons of new technology coming out with AI workloads and some of the integrations that need to happen, both in terms of scheduling, workload distribution, the efficient use of hardware, sustainability and energy efficiency, but also how Kubernetes continues to expand across clusters, dealing with multi-cluster sprawl, and the distribution of workloads in at the edge and core environments.
What's your least favorite Kubernetes feature?
No, that's a trick question. I love it all.
Well played. An even trickier question. You are a highly skilled technical person. You are also one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. What's your secret?
What's my secret? I think it's about being open, and despite the fact that we have lots of experts in this field, always staying humble, right? There's always stuff that you can learn from people in the community and people in your team, people in your company, and always be humble and be open to learning.
How can people get in touch with you?
So I am on the CNCF Slack as well as Twitter and LinkedIn, so feel free to get in touch.
And what's next for you?
What's next for me professionally is I'm very excited to continue to work in Akamai's cloud platform, where we're building some of the more complex and scalable solutions for some of Akamai's largest customers.